Okay, folks, it is time to rock and roll for our wild turkey hunting webinar segment 3, the final one of 3 for 2025, called Hunting Techniques and Strategies. And if you stayed for the last ones, we hope you enjoy this grand finale, as we're going to try to make it that way. So moving on. Tonight's panelists again: Hannah Plumpton, upland game bird biologist, covering the biology Q&A. John Henry Harrelson, District 4 wildlife biologist, hunting and Q&A. Eric Gleason, Master Officer, Law Enforcement Division, Laws Regs Q&A. And obviously me, Hunter Engagement Coordinator, as MC, hunting and Q&A narrator, and sometimes assist with hunting. Webinar logistics overview. Again, it's 1 hour long, recorded and distributed less than or equal to 2 weeks and maybe longer. And I say that at the end because a lot of people don't come in for the initial view. Q&A length is 30 minutes, questions in writing only, must be topic specific, but this night we will go for all 3 webinars, starting with the biology for hunter regulation, where to hunt scouting on Monday, firearms, ammo, clothing, footwear, miscellaneous equipment, and obviously tonight, hunting techniques and strategies. So we're making it wide open for you and addressed during the Q&A, not during the webinar. Chat hand raising is not monitored, and please allow us to cover material before writing questions, because oftentimes when you start writing questions initially, we're already covering that stuff. As I always say, between this website and this Regs Digest, you have all you need to know. Sometimes if there's something gray and it does happen, not quite clear to you, you can reach out to us. But as I always say, let your fingers do the walking first here. It is far easier these days with websites and all the information they have. And believe me, when I travel out of state, and I like traveling out of state, the first place I go is their website and have their Regs Digest. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we're going to have some fun. Obviously, I'm involved in the webinars and the hunting workshops. Webinars came about because of COVID, when we had in-person seminars, and working out well. And then, of course, there's the hunting workshop that are out there, and you get outside of your house and get to do some things as well, including shooting. This is the full list. You can see all the programming. Obviously, you know how to register, so we definitely want to see you again. There's lots of stuff going on. Try to fit it in your schedule, and the best way I like to do it is put it on my calendar so I'm reminded of it. One of the limiting factors to the Learn to Hunt, and I'm a one-man band, and sometimes I get staff assistant like tonight, which I am extremely grateful for. But the majority of my people at these workshops especially, including the workshop minis and the 8-hour workshop, minis are 3 hours, and the 8-hour workshop is volunteer support. And that includes instructors, instructor assistants, logistics assistants, just helping out at the workshop, even if you're not experienced of a hunter, and even landowners willing to open up their property, a venue, so we can go more around the state. If you're interested, Learn to Hunt, there it is at the bottom at ncwildlife.org, which will be changing to .gov. So just so you know that, you're going to see it when you start looking at the website and things like that, or just LTH at ncwildlife.org.gov. 2025, as I noted last year and the night before, I'm involved in the hunting engagement coordinator, finally figure out what I'm doing. It is about hunter recruitment, retention, and reactivation. Well, this year is retirement. Looking very forward to it, but it's both humbling, a little bit sad because I won't be here anymore. But hopefully my successor will still be kicking off this stuff. This is the 5th year for turkey hunting webinars. And the folks that you're with tonight have pretty much been here for, I think, everyone, probably. And most of the webinars are done by staff. A lot of our volunteers, instructors, I'm discovering, are not really into the technological side of webinars, so I don't have a lot of luck with that. But anyway, I mentioned this not for accolades that I'm retiring, but if I've seen you in the past, I want to see you one last time. And if I've never seen you, I'd like to meet you. So sign up for the workshops. We're starting out with a video tonight. John Henry and I had a lot of fun with this. Hopefully you will enjoy it. But this will give you an example of all those topics you can read on your screen yourself. So without further ado, we're going to fire this up.
No, he's not a. Come on, you're ridiculous.
Hello, folks. I'm Deke James, Hunter Engagement Coordinator for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission.
And I'm John Henry Harrelson, District Wildlife Biologist with the Wildlife Resource Commission.
And
we're talking turkey.
Before we get started, folks, I just want to say a couple of things based on a lot of different questions I get asked. What you are going to learn today is some of the how-tos of turkey hunting. But what I always say at programming, it's important to let your fingers do the walking first. Many of the questions I get asked can be solved with this Regulations Digest or on our website at ncwildlife.org, like hunting regulations for turkey, for example, game lands regulations, local laws, among just a few things. So before you head out into the woods and put your boots on the ground, check out the Regs Digest.
Today, we're going to be covering varying topics, including how to scout, where to scout, pros and cons of using turkey decoys, as well as an actual hunt scenario and safety measures to finalize the scene.
Exactly, and including decoy setups, which can sometimes be separate from a hunt. So what do you say we get started? Folks, this is a reenactment of an actual hunt, and I'm pretty sure I heard a gobbler right down over there. The first thing I want to do is get as close as possible to that bird without him seeing me. And since I think he's relatively close, I probably won't be setting up decoys in this case. In fact, I rarely ever use decoys, probably 20% of the times, because I'll strike a bird close. So what we're going to do now is set up. Again, this is a reenactment, and this walking stick is my shotgun. Are you ready? Let's go set up on this bird. First thing I'm going to find is a tree that is relatively close to where I think that bird is going to appear. And I want there to be a break in the topography so that when that bird does finally show himself, he's within killing range of my shotgun, or in this case, a walking stick. And you only know that by patterning your shotgun prior to the season. When you know its maximum effective range, then you know how far you need to set up. So again, as soon as that bird appears and is looking, you want to be able to kill him. Otherwise, he's going to look up, he's going to see no hen, and he's likely to leave. So we're going to set up now. So, okay, folks, I'm pretty sure I know where that gobbler is. And right now I'm about 35 steps from where I think that gobbler is going to see me. So within maximum effective range of my shotgun. And before I start calling to him, I'm just going to blow my locator call again, just to pinpoint so I can aim in that direction. You should have gobbled. Let me try it again. All right, there he was. I heard him. So at this point, I'm going to get my face mask up and I'm going to get ready. The first thing I want to tell you about a turkey, you want that turkey to be in a position where he wants you more than you want him. And that's just something that you have to gauge, and here is how. The first call I'm going to make to that turkey, this is going to be a turkey that pretty much says, you as a hunter want him more than he wants you. Are you ready? Do you hear him? He gobbled after I called. Let's try it again. That bird is not hot. The best thing you can do is tone down your calling. Don't call loud, and even use natural sounds like raking in the leaves, because turkeys scratch. Less is more in this case. If you pressure this gobbler, he may not even come in, or he may even have hens with him. And those are things you don't know. Now you're going to see the situation where the turkey wants you more than you want him.
Hear that? It was right after. In fact, he cut off my call. Let's try that one more time. He didn't even wait. That bird, and there are no absolutes in turkey hunting, he is likely to come in and come in fast. He may not, but that is a bird that is hot as he's ready. He may not be with hens, he may be with hens, but for the most part, he's ready. So now I'm gonna get in a position. I know where I hear that bird. I'm going to get the gun up. That's what you want to do. Wherever that bird is initially, point that gun in that direction. And again, I've checked my gun, maximum effective range. I know I can kill him that far if he shows. I just seen some of a tail fan. I just seen him. I just seen him. He's coming up behind that rise. That bird is looking here. See him? See him? See that bird looking? Now the only thing bad about him in that situation is he is in full strut. And the problem with full strut is that you're going to eat pellets if you shoot that bird because his head is so tight to his body. The best thing to do is let him stretch out his neck. So then your full pattern is in the head and neck region and not in the breast. And the simple way you can do that is either with a turkey call or you can make like a putt. I'm on him and I'm not moving. You cannot move. When he pops up like that, you get on him, boom! If you see his head go up, you shoot again. And that's because there's times when just a margin of pellets hit. You don't want that bird regaining consciousness and taking off and flying away. A flopping bird doesn't matter, but make sure his head goes down. After that bird goes down like that, make sure the safety is on the gun, get up, and we'll head towards that gobbler. Okay, folks, this is scene 2. So in other words, we're going back to the same hunt, but something else is going to happen here. So pay attention because gobblers, especially nowadays, will tend to do this, especially if they don't see the hen initially. So I'm aiming back to the original spot right now because that's where I heard that gobbler, where I was before. And right now I'm waiting. I heard him gobble just a moment before, and I'm looking intently at that spot. But you always got to be looking from side to side because you never know where he's going to appear without moving your head. And look, lo and behold, there's that gobbler. He circled me. He didn't want to come in right away, as they typically don't. He circles, but when he's like that, you cannot move your gun barrel. I guarantee if you move your gun barrel, if he don't immediately duck and pitch off the mountain, he will just flush into the air. So what you have to do is wait until that head goes behind a tree. And once you do that, then you move deliberately and don't make noise while you're doing it. And right here, you wait for him to come back out again. And he may come out of different sides to the tree, not the same one, but there he is. And again, like I said, if I'm going to shoot a turkey nowadays, I don't want to be eating pellets. I love to eat wild turkey meat. So I'm going to pull him out of strut. And he's a big one. Soon as he comes up, he's looking and he's suspicious. Boom! Okay, folks, I just shot at that gobbler. I didn't see his head go up, so as far as I'm concerned, he's probably flopping just over that rise. I'm going to put my safety on the gun real quick, and we're going to head towards that prize. And right there, he's sitting on that mound. That's right there. Oftentimes when you get next to a gobbler like this, he will be flopping. It's just like the chicken with the head cut off. Let him run out of steam. Unless you've got a really steep hill over a river, many hunters will go up and stop the bird from moving, usually by stepping on his head. You don't want to reach for them legs, because if you do, you could get cut by the spurs or you could get bruised by those wings. It's a very powerful bird. At that point, you're getting down with your gun. At this point, before you take this bird anyway, you need to tag him. We have an app that goes on our phone, a Go Outdoors app, that you can tag your bird. You don't even need to paper tag anymore. Or on your license, and it's referred to the Big Game Harvest Report Card, you can do it on paper. You got to notch the month and the day for the turkey tag. But do keep your tagging consistent. So if you're going to choose the Go Outdoors app, always use that. If you're going to choose a paper tag, always use that. And then after you tag him, you've got till noon the next day to call that bird in. Letting the agency know about a harvested bird, and they'll ask you several questions, is very important to manage this fine species.
The next topic we're going to cover is decoys, the good and the bad of them. Up here in my hand, I've got a $10, $15 decoy you can pick up in any Walmart. And down there on the ground, we got decoys at a couple $100. Now granted, there are positives and negatives of using decoys. One of the negatives is you got to carry that thing around. It takes time setting them up, and then sometimes the birds even run from those decoys, especially if they've seen them used before. The pros of using decoys, at least for me, is they work really good out in the open. Turkeys are visual birds, so they're coming looking, expecting to see another bird. They're hearing a bird calling, they come expecting to see a bird there. So by having decoys out, it provides them that opportunity to see that bird or see the bird they hear calling and come on a little closer. Now in the hunt scenario we saw earlier, Deet wasn't using decoys, and he used his setup to be able to shoot the bird right as it came over the lip. For me, I like to use decoys when I can't use that terrain advantage. When I'm in a wide open field, when I'm along a roadbed like this, it gives the bird something to focus on other than me. The birds are looking here and not here, which is positive. However, like I stated earlier, some birds are wary of decoys. Turkeys move, and unless you got a breezy day, your decoys aren't going to be moving. So it's up to you whether you want to use decoys. A couple other things to consider when you're using decoys is how many decoys you're going to put out. What scene are you trying to portray? I oftentimes put a Jake decoy and a hen decoy out. That hen can be standing like she is here, she can be laying on the ground, her head position can be changed. It all depends on the decoys you have. Jake decoys, like the one here, often show a subordinate bird, so not a dominant bird. A big fad right now, or a big trend, is using full fan decoys or strutter decoys. They demonstrate a dominant gobbler, and that may encourage your bird that you're working to come closer, or it may encourage him to run the other way. Something else to consider when setting up decoys is the distance you set the decoys up from you and the placement. I often like to place them off my left shoulder because I'm right-handed, and it's comfortable for me to be in a shooting position toward the decoys, but also allow for me to move the gun if the birds come from another direction. I like to set the decoys up 20, 25 yards away because I know my effective range is roughly 40 yards. So that still gives me about 15 yards to play with if those birds come in and decide to hang up and don't commit all the way to coming into the decoys. Deet, you got any other tips?
I think I might have mentioned it earlier, folks. I rarely use decoys, and that's because most of the time when I'm ready to set up on a bird, because of my style of hunting, which is move, stop and call, move, stop and call, move, stop and call, I'll strike a bird close by, especially when you have a windy condition, so I don't have time to set up decoys. And like in the scene we showed, you are going to encounter two things during turkey season. Well, among others, when I start out early in the year, I'll typically have snow falling. Usually that shuts birds down. They get quiet then, but a bird will still gobble in the snow. Wind and rain are two things that hunters don't like. We have wind today. In those conditions, you want to look for leeward side of ridges, bottoms where it's calmer, because the turkeys aren't going anywhere. They're going to stay in the woods. And I do tend to, if you can't hear because of the wind, call a little bit louder, more aggressively, and sit a little bit longer. You're not always going to have bluebird days in the woods. I don't know about you guys, but turkeys mesmerize me. Folks, one of the things we're going to talk about now is probably one of the most important, and that is safety, and several different aspects of turkey hunting safety. You know, in the 1990s, the #1 cause of hunting incidents, not accidents, incidents in my home state was mistaken for game. There's absolutely no excuse for that. I'm a funny looking guy, but I don't look like a turkey. So proper identification, and in North Carolina, that is a male or bearded bird. And if you're even hunting other states, moving around, the regulations can be a little bit different. But properly identify the target. Colors not to wear. You can tell right now I'm in all camo, my favorite color. But here's an example of the typical handkerchiefs, or however you say it, that you can buy. And if you keep these colors in mind, anywhere on this wild turkey are these colors. The white on the top, the red on the caruncles, the blue, that's the pigment in between around his eyes, and the black of the body. These should not be any part of your garments. When carrying this bird out, although not required by law, you should have some type of either a vest or, like in my case, this carrying bag. And for me, typically, I'm not going from the farmhouse to the bale about 100 yards away. I may have to carry this bird a mile or a mile and a half, and this is basically a backpack. So you don't have to have something like this, but it makes carrying them easier and safer. But I'll always have an orange hat. And usually, it's a brand new orange hat, but I will carry this one because I've had it forever. And every time I've harvested a gobbler, or even moved on a gobbler when I wasn't set up, I would have this orange hat on. That way it keeps you safe when you're moving, but especially when you're carrying a bird. And that way you stay safe, and it'll keep our turkey hunting from having mistaken for game incidents. And always, again, properly identify your target as a legal turkey.
Hey, another hunter here.
Tip number one, folks, when you're walking through the woods, you could encounter another hunter already set up in a turkey hunting situation. The best way to handle that is just say, "Hunter over here," not wave your hand, not make a turkey call, just make it obvious that you're there. Because when you're in camo, it's very easy to miss that. Also, if you end up in a situation, you're coming in from a hunter at a distance that is working a bird, you can hear that gobble. What you don't want to do is try to go out around and set up in another location to work that bird. That hunter is working that bird first. Have a plan B or a plan C and come back later and set up on a different bird. That hunter's in charge of that one. It's the same thing also if you're going down the road and one of the parking lots already has a vehicle in it. If it's a small tract of land, you have to keep in mind it's not like deer hunting where everybody stays in a stationary position, and another hunter can be a distant out of sight, a distance away, and that's okay. In a turkey hunting situation, when that bird gobbles, it is a goal for the hunter, as you saw earlier, to move as close as possible to that bird and set up. And what you don't want to have is multiple people trying to set up on the same bird. So always be the person that's courtesy to other hunters. And again, besides colors, keep it safe, keep it ethical, and have a great spring season.
Oh, did you hear that one?
I did hear that, John Henry. John Henry, that's my bird.
Whoa, buddy. I scouted, I found him, I just heard him.
Come on, I brought you here.
I beat you to the parking lot.
All right, wait a minute. We'll flip a stick.
Stick down, I calling it.
All right, stick down.
Yes! See you later, buddy.
You always do
Going to
this
get
me.
it.
All right, folks, moving on. This was something I added because the questions still come up even at the workshops about turkey decoys, and there's a lot of curiosity there, and a lot of times it's not understood. You heard John Henry say places off his non-shooting shoulder, meaning the buttstock on the gun, as in this illustration. He's a right-handed shooter. That person's a right-handed shooter. So that means those turkey decoys are going to face off the left hand. That is where they're placed, the forearm, the hand that's holding the forearm. And that's traditionally how you do it. And the main reason is because then that way you'll have a larger margin of to swing that gun should that turkey come in the open. Whereas if that person that has it is right-handed, has those turkeys far to the right, his range going to the right will be far more limited. And if you need to try it for yourself, get out there in the woods or in the yard, put your decoys there, take a walking stick like I had, and set the decoys up, and you'll realize that if you're a left-handed shooter and you have them too far right, you can't swing to the right. So it's simple as that. What I like to place them, and John Henry mentioned that too, place half the maximum effective range of your pattern shotgun. And I say hint with pattern. The shotgun has to be patterned. And in that way, then, as again, John Henry pointed it out, if those turkeys hang up, if that gobbler hangs up, because sometimes they'll come right to that turkey like a moth to a flame, and sometimes they'll hang up. Well, if you put those decoys out at your maximum effective range and he stops short of it, well, guess what? You can't shoot. Best for open areas, woods and fields. So I typically don't use them much. And if there's enough foliage that can hide you and kind of conceal as that bird's coming in, you don't really need decoys. Let the turkey find you, but they do give them something to see when the woods are open. I just said it there. I got ahead of myself. Not needed when foliage increases or in thick areas. And keep in mind too, that thick areas can be a barrier. If it's too thick, even though a turkey can run right through it, no problem, or fly over it, he may hang up. Not always effective, as was pointed out too in the video. They get suspicious. If it's a dominant looking bird and it's a subordinate gobbler, it may scare them off. No movement, just as John Henry pointed out. Not legal in all states. You take a trip to Alabama, as far as I know, they're still illegal, and some other states as well. They are legal in North Carolina. Never carry exposed decoys, and there's a reason for doing that. That would be the best way to get a shot, and you want to avoid that. Now, if you properly identify your target, that's not going to be a problem. But during the 1990s, that was a primary time for mistaken for game incidents, and I said that in the video.
Deep, may I interject something there?
Sure, go ahead.
So this is Eric Gleason, the game warden out of Caldwell County. A few years ago, we had a hunting incident on this end of the state where an individual was hunting turkeys over bait, shot at a bird and crippled it, and the bird ran onto a neighbor's property. The neighbor was also hunting the same turkey. He heard the shot, assumed the bird had been killed, assumed his hunt was over. He got up, went and he picked up his decoy and was carrying his decoy under his arm. The hunter who shot the bird came across his neighbor's posted property, so he was trespassing at that point. Looked up, saw the neighbor carrying the turkey decoy, thought the decoy was a turkey, and he shot his neighbor. So even when you're on private land, even if it's your own land that you own, it's still a good idea to keep those decoys covered. Obviously, in that specific scenario, there's a lot of issues there, both on the legality side, on what is and isn't ethical, and then some hunter safety issues as well. Obviously, not identifying your target, and there's a lot of problems there. But don't let yourself think just because I'm on private land that I have permission to be on and nobody else has permission to be here. Don't just assume that that is always the case. Still practice those hunter safety things that you've been taught to keep yourself safe.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Eric. Very important. And you know what I was even going to say and bring up later is, again, during the 1990s, it was very high. Is it relatively high now, or are they very isolated instances when it's mistaken for game?
It's pretty isolated. It does still happen. Can't pretend that it doesn't. However, now our most common hunting incidents now are tree stand falls, which is a topic for a different day. But in the 10 years that I have worked for the Wildlife Commission, I have investigated 2 incidents of somebody being mistook for game. So that's in the grand scheme, 2 incidences of somebody being mistook in 10 years is pretty low.
Yep, it is. And there's really no excuse for it. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. When hunting ridges, mountains, regardless of decoys, always attempt to set up at the same level or above the gobbler before calling. And I call it the predator escape factor. Simply put, if you're above a gobbler when you're calling him and he's coming up and all of a sudden it turns out to be you or a predator, he can easily turn around and pitch. And they typically need to bend their legs and kind of get that little bit off the ground, kind of like kneel and spring. And fly and pitch right off the ridge. Well, if he's coming down to you, and a turkey can be called down, I've done it already, But in that situation, it's a lot harder for him to jump up into the air, even though he can, and fly uphill. So just consider that, set up at the same level or above whenever you can. So this is what I have a lot of fun with as well. What we're trying to show you is what our typical hunt is from start to finish. And you can easily say, well, here's what I use. And we do talk about that basic gear and hunting scenario at the workshops, and we have stuff to show you, just like we did in the slides the recent day. But this actually shows in some images what we do, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And obviously we're starting up with John Henry. Take it away.
Hey guys, hey everybody. Thanks for having me again tonight. Let's see if we can get sure the slides are going to work.
Yep, just click on your screen first.
Yep, there we go. So when Deet asked me to talk about what like a typical turkey hunt is, a typical turkey hunt, there's never any real typical turkey hunt. We were talking about before the video started tonight about how much we actually mess up, and we kind of, the videos on TV and on YouTube really portray it as, you're very successful every time. But I can't tell you how many birds I bump. I can't tell you how many times I've got caught moving. And that's all things you learn from. The hunt I'm going to talk about right here, this actually, when I first made this slide, this was something I dreamed about. And right now I'm going to describe to you something that actually happened on Game Lands with my daughter 2 seasons ago now. Is essentially what you read right there. We went to a spot, we owl hooted, the birds just flew the roof off. We set up some decoys. We already had our spot picked out. 5 birds walked in. They beat up the decoys. My little girls can't even hold it together. She can't get one of them to stop. They start leaving. She ends up shooting one. And I get to video it, and it's what you dream about. But honestly, that's one time out of probably hundreds, if not thousands of hunts. That's happened one time. The rest of the time, it's usually some kind of cluster of mistakes and issues and learning that goes on. And so this is a piece of property that I hunt on or have hunted on in the past, about 150 acres. And from hunting on it and from learning a bunch, the red stars are places where I know turkeys like to roost at, or I've heard turkeys roosting at in the past. And the yellow stars that just popped up there, those are places that I typically like to start listening from. For me, I like to get there early enough, well before daylight, where I can hear the first calls, the first bird sounds waking up, and I can hear those birds first gobble, so I can try to get, make a move while it's still dark. Particularly if I don't know where birds are roosting at, I don't want to go too far on that first morning or that first initial move and bump them off the roost. But darkness, you want to take advantage of that if you can. That allows you to get closer to birds as well without them seeing you. So on this particular morning, actually the hunt I'm talking about, it's the sunrise from it. I went to that yellow star, and the red stars were where I heard birds at. So for me, it just made sense to go to the north there, and those birds pitched down. They ended up flying out into the field where I don't have permission to hunt, but I can sure enough see all of it from from our property line. And after some coaxing, what I could glimpse through the woods there turned out to be a group of 3 jakes. And so I don't typically shoot jakes, but it's up to the hunter's choice. They're a legal bird to take. But these birds weren't the birds that were gobbling. The longbeards, there were 2 more birds out there in that pasture, in that field, that were gobbling. And these are some subordinate birds that came over and checked me out. And I chose to hold off waiting on those other birds. Well, that didn't really work out like it often happens. But I'll tell you, one of those big successes for me has been what you see right there on the screen, has been management of this place. So we spend a lot of time burning We spend a lot of time even burning our uplands and our grass fields. About half the property is in CRP. And then we spend a lot of time disking it, trying to make habitat for turkey poults and for nests. Turkeys have plenty of things to eat in the winter, in the fall and in the winter. But something that's really important for turkeys is for poults to have places to catch bugs. And the way you have bugs is you have weeds and flowers and insects. You got to create that stuff. So we spend a lot of time managing this farm. And so it's really cool to see those jakes on there. And that's a product of our, it's a success for us. So after I had that little interaction with the jakes, they went back out to the field there with their buddies to the north. And I picked my way along that little trail there you see, and that's about 400 or 500 yards, and just called every 100 yards or so and was listening and hadn't heard anything, and got all the way over to the other side there, and you could look down from where that star is, and you could see to the south kind of along that runway, and there was a couple birds out there. They hadn't responded to my calling whatsoever, but I could see them strutting out there from being in the back. I had stopped before I got all the way up there and was scanning with my binoculars and were able to see those birds out there in that field. Well, to me, easy opportunity right there. So I just laid down essentially next to a tree, and within about a minute or two of some soft calling, there you go. And you can see in that center picture there in the selfie, kind of that road he walked up, and he walked all the way from that. It's actually a nursery or orchard of some fruit trees we've got planted. He walked up there and walked right to me, no problem. Didn't even gobble, but strutted the whole way. And that's what you call a successful hunt in my book. Something else I will talk about, or I'll encourage you. This is a bird from earlier. You see burning right there. And you see just how wet he is. I killed him when it was a very wet morning. And after about 20, 30 minutes of me hanging out there, walking back to the truck and getting it and coming back, I had hung him up and he dried out. And look at the difference in the pictures. It just, these are birds to be cherished. These are birds to be honored. For me, a lot of times, the photos are only things I'm going to have to remember it by, because you can only keep so many tail fans and wing feathers. And so I want the photo to be the best I can get. So I would encourage you to take the time to set up a good photo and make it worthwhile. And then there you go. That's also something I put together of that same bird right there. Just took a little time to do something a little different and to memorialize the special ones, because you don't get to kill but so many, and the memories are what count. The last little topic I'll talk on, it will be trail cams. You can see right there, I have some cell cams out that were in that orchard. You can even see a ground blind in the background. And you see those dates for April 7th, April 29th. I mean, he's been in there. He was in there all season. Particularly mid-morning, lunchtime, strutting, gobbling. Obviously, take advantage of using your trail cams and put them in places in strut zones. So in areas that birds are going to be going back and forth mid-morning, and it will help you figure out when birds are using the area. So take advantage of that, the new technology that's out there. The last little thing I'll touch on is Dee asked to talk about what's a recipe. And so something that often gets overlooked are the turkey thighs. Lots of people just want to eat a turkey breast. And man, some of the best thing in the world is turkey nuggets, fried turkey nuggets. But I'd encourage you to save the legs and thighs as well. And making something like that right there, making some tacos out of it. We end up putting it in the crock pot with some chicken broth and seasonings and other things, and cooking it there for a couple hours, and literally, like you do anything else, making great meals out of wild game. So Dee, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope if you got any questions, we'll take them at the end.
Thank you, John Henry. As always, since I call too much and call too loud, I always throw in some extra slides as well, like with pattern and guns and everything else. But yeah, we'll take it from here. And it's always good. I mentioned it last night. Always good to have two or more perspectives. And by coming to these events, whether it be webinars or workshop, that's what you're getting, not just one style, one method. Because there are some people that will say, well, maybe that's too aggressive, or I don't like that method. I agree with the more patient method. That's why it's always better to have. And that's what hunting mentors, original people that had mentors, didn't have. It was mostly just one person that more often than not was also limited in skills. So you have so much today, whether it be with us or online. So take advantage of it. This guy I was introduced to, obviously, in the late 80s. He had two videos, 1988, 1989. They were VHS. He never did put them on DVD. Of course, DVD is pretty much obsolete now, too. Everybody's streaming. But there is some stuff out there, no doubt, videos of him. But he had two, that volume 1 and 2, and volume 1 and 2 of the VHS were the slowest videos ever. They would put a millennial, I used to joke around, they put a millennial to sleep. There were only like 3 kills in 2 hours, and it was hardly kills at all, but they were chock full of information. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is some stuff that he had in the videos, which is more or less biologically sound. As we already know, the photo period is what determines the onset of breeding, but with weather, it can change birds a little bit. They're still in breeding mode, but they can also easily slip into fall mode. And so understanding, just like with turkeys having a short gestation period for the young, they have their breeding in the spring. A deer with a much larger gestation period breed in the fall, and that's so that all those young can be born during a time of a lot of food. So it's incredibly interesting. The biology is great. So anyway, there's this period 1 that he shares, and he often talked about how, depending on what state you start in, some seasons start a little early, some are known to start kind of too early, and some people say they're too late. But it's still the basic goal of all spring hunting is to bring the hunts in when the majority of hens are on the nest, putting hens out of harm's way, and then gobblers being susceptible. So anyway, period 1, what I encounter sometimes in the northern states when it's really cold, these birds, prior to like the turkey season, it's warming up, no doubt. They're getting together, they're starting their breeding, but sometimes you'll get these late springs, and it takes turkeys and throws these males back in almost to a fall mode. Well, as in terms of calls, Jake yelping, and it's basically a hen yelp with the cadence slowed down. That can be highly effective. Coarser clucks, not a real sharp one, but a little bit more coarse, dragging that pin over that slate call. Fighting purrs. We talked about that in the video last night. That can have the impact of challenging that dominance in those flocked birds, the males. The spit and drum, we talked about that last night too. That can be a call, and I bet the majority of people don't even use it, and it's fairly easy to mimic. And then, of course, the gobbling call. These are all things should you be having a late spring. And Ray Eye said himself, the majority of the time he was more successful with Jake yelping, and uses it all throughout the year. Period 1. Period 2 is that pre-breeding times when the toms are getting with the hens, but they may be unreceptive. Typically with the first gobbling peak. All calls can be effective, more or less, because the toms are searching around for hens. And if the dominant gobblers are with hens, they're more or less out of reach. But those subordinates and the satellites, like potentially those two that you're looking at, they don't have a girlfriend. And they may not always be allowed to gobble because of the dominant bird, but they'll come to your calls. So as it also says, many young gobblers, as John Henry pointed out, Jakes, are taking that period, or even 2-year-olds. Period 3 is peak breeding. That's when the hens are receptive, mating's in full swing. That can be what we call a gobbling lull. Not a lot of talk. And even the immature gobblers, although they will gobble, sometimes they're intimidated not to, and they become skulkers. Those subordinates and satellites are vulnerable to that calling, though, at that time, even though the dominants henned up, as we would say. Blind calling techniques are effective. Raking in the leaves using a wing to scratch against the tree, maybe like a fly down, making the sound of a mimic of a bird flying down in the morning. And this is also the time to challenge the boss hen. She basically dominates him, and she doesn't like, even though he has his harem, each one of those in that harem know their order in that pecking order. But if that hen sometimes hears another bird that is out of that order, which would be you, she may want to challenge you. And I've already had birds that you challenge her, you throw at whatever she's throwing at you. When she responds, you throw at her some more and something harder. And if done effectively, and believe me, it doesn't always have work. I've had hens coming in all by themselves to run me off. If it comes in and she's with a tom, he comes in tow. And then just make sure then that you don't shoot any of them other birds that he's out of the way. So the last period is period 4. That's typically the peak and post nesting. Majority of hens are on the nest. It can be the second gobbling peak because those gobblers are lonely again. They're like, where's my hens? And he's carrying on again. States typically do try to establish their season around that period. Again, hens out of harm's way. Gobbler's lonely for the first time since breeding, and they want to get up. So this can be the great time to harvest an adult gobbler. And I got ahead of my bullet because I was thinking about it. It's the last opportunity for gobblers to mate until it really starts winding down and they start going back and just kind of feeding and hanging out. And hunting pressure can be a double-edged sword, though. The birds have been hit with a lot of calls, especially whether that's public or even sometimes on private. And they may be quieter, less respond to a call. But if you're patient and you use very light calling, toning it down, that can help. So again, a little bit more that I thought was valuable. There's 3 primary turkey hunting methods, and you're looking at them. There was really only 2, but then I kind of created the middle one, or at least we know the middle one is extremely good now. But I am a run and gun, cut and run person. Move, stop, and call. I'm not a patient turkey hunter. I can deer hunt still 13 hours in a tree stand. I think folks already told it. It gives me severe agony to wait 15 minutes for a bird to come in. That's my method. At the extreme end of that, it's the patient and wait, typically in a blind or not, being patient. If you can pattern them birds prior to the season, if you know where they're going, and you can do it if you have the time to observe them prior to the spring, you just go there and wait, or just go where there is sign or a logging road or places turkeys frequent and wait, and you can get them that way. Well, during my heyday, nearly every bird come running to the gun right after the trap and transfer projects, as Hannah was talking about early, turkey restoration. They would come in so fast you almost had to kill them in self-defense. They were going to stick their head right down your gun barrel. And no, not in a sense the turkey's going to hurt you. Somebody said one time, seriously, self-defense? No, but they were just running to the gun. Well, now because of hunting and predation and getting used to both, whether it be human or other predators, they're a little bit more cautious. And rather than run in, they will circle you. They want to see a hen. They want to be sure. And that can happen, especially on public land, especially if one comes in and sees a hunter, or one comes in and is shot at, even more so. So slow it down, stay longer, quieter on the calls, tone down, because if you find hens, for the most part, unless they're yakking at you because you're challenging a hen, their calling is very subtle. And so I'm trying to slip into that mode. As we say, roosted ain't roasted. Even if you know where a bird is and you're calling to him and he responds first thing off in the morning, it doesn't mean he's going to come to you. He likely has a place where he already knows where he wants to go. And if you don't know it, you're likely not going to be part of it. But what I will say right off the bat, never overcall to a gobbler on the roost. If you do, he's going to stay in that roost, because the natural order of the turkey is he's gobbling, the hens go to him. And so that's what he's waiting for. If you get a bird to respond and you're pretty sure he responded to you, put your call back in your pocket and don't say anything until he hits the ground. I like to let things wake up. I like to let the earth wake up first, rather than using locators. But the first thing, say after daybreak, if nothing happens, then yes, a locator call, an owl hooter, a crow call. Some people start out right out with owl hooting. I don't. Then you progress into the turkey calls, obviously. And when I'm moving and calling, I will usually use turkey calls, but I will stop, as I said in the past, before I make a call. You don't want to sound like a moving hen. Where does he want to go? Right from the first one. If you know it, if you've been scouting, you know where his strutting areas, you know where he wants to go, and you should be there first. Avoid barriers, anything, a log, a river, a creek, a drainage in a bottom, all those things, even though a turkey can move across it, he has the potential to hang up because he is innately designed to wait for the hen. And so he don't want to go out of his way mostly, even though there's no absolutes. He may go through it. He flies down, now what? Well, that's when typically after that, if he hears me, and I know he hears me, I'll pour on the song. I'll be doing a lot of calling. And you heard me say about, is he hot or is he not? So you need to decide that and tone it down if he's not. Again, I say it just to repeat, cut and run, but don't call while moving unless it's a locator call to try to get ahead of that bird and maybe reposition. He's hung up, nowhere to move and win. If you've studied that area, or if he's not comfortable with that spot, then try to move outside and away from him to get, and I've moved 3 to 5 times on a bird till he got to a point where he was comfortable. Maybe he was scared by a predator where you are and you don't want to go that way. So just because he's hung up, you don't need to give up unless you can't move on him successfully. Again, non-calling technique, scratching in the leaves, it can be highly effective. There was one time, and I'll share this, I was in Pennsylvania. The place was, that was my home state. It was later in the season. I was moving out along in the leaves. I was walking, all of a sudden a bird gobbled. And I was like, boom, hit the deck, get ready. He was out ahead. I started making calls. I never heard him again. And although I don't know exactly what happened, what I'm surmising is that bird may have come into a hunter, got spotted, he saw the hunter, or he come in and he got shot at. So it was basically, if I would have just been walking and sat down and did nothing and scratched in the leaves, I might have got that bird. But what I'm thinking is when he heard the call, he thought, that's another person with a large bore shotgun. I'm not even going over there. And you don't know what turkeys think. Ladies in the AM, dead in the late AM or afternoon. You encounter a bird in the morning with the hens, eventually, even if it's later on in the season, they're going to go away to start laying eggs. And I've had many a birds that I'd come back to that same spot that responded to me in the morning, gave me a courtesy call, but wouldn't come in because he was with the ladies, and I called him in later. And in North Carolina, you can hunt all day. The gobbling lull, that's basically after that first gobbling peak. And that's when I like to take a break, write in my journal, have a snack, and then I start hitting it again like about 9:30. And it depends, you can have action all day, but there is that kind of lull right after the first initial talking, as you saw on the chart the other night with the biology, and then gobbling slows off after that. Silent gobblers are the worst kind. They don't gobble. You never know if they're coming in. Patience. Nothing, go where you know birds may have been or were. You can go somewhere blind. I go in many places blind. But again, if you get out and you find out where they are, like in John Henry's picture, you kind of have an option. So it is the Red Roof Chevy Inn. You already saw it. That's what I like to do. I'll stay in there for up to about 2 weeks. That was down in Green River, by the way. And I've been all over many of the game lands in the mountain. That was probably too much to say, but I'm not giving you GPS coordinates. The point is, that's how I like to hunt, totally immersed. You see what it looks like? I'll have a high-end cooler, put plenty of ice in there. It'll last for up to 2 weeks. And I've had all kind of temperatures, which we'll see what that's like. But to me, that is the ultimate. Now, I plan on making it a much more posh vehicle in retirement, like one of those vans or something like that, God willing. But I have a lot of great memories in the back of that truck. You can see kind of what it looks like, junk piled up on the side, but I got plenty of place to sleep. You already saw this the other night. That's kind of what I'll gobble down as soon as I get jumping up in the morning when I'm getting dressed. And I'm using healthier granola bars now. And the Slim Fast can has changed. But yeah, that's my breakfast. So I'll get out there, typically on top of a ridge. That happens to be a Virginia ridge. It was 20 degrees that morning, very cold. And you were looking at the moon right there. Took a picture of it. So I'm waiting. I was there early, probably 45 minutes before even first light, but that's when I like to maybe text a friend, write in my journal, all those things. Starts to wake up. That's when I'm starting to hear some sounds, maybe some movement, maybe the first birds singing. And then by this time, I'm like, well, hey, come on, like, where's the gobbler? Well, by the time we get to this point of the sun's up, if I'm not hearing a bird, and many times I've encountered that going in blind in places I never was, which is okay for me. I like to wander aimlessly. This is when I'll start moving, running, gunning, move about every 50, 100 yards, depending on how open the terrain is. Move, stop and call, move, stop and call, move, stop and call. And I can easily cover 6, 8 miles even before noon in the northern states if I'm not hearing a bird. And sometimes it happens. So I'll move from ridge to ridge, but I'll never expose myself to a hollow. I'll always back away to a hollow like that, call, and then if I hear something, you best believe I'm getting just about maximum effective, less than maximum effective range from that lip where that bird's going to appear like in the video. There's a ridge where I've constantly heard birds down over, and you best believe, since that hasn't been fully greened up yet, I'm not going to be sticking myself right at that lip. It's too far out of effective range when I'm going to see the bird and when he can potentially see me. So I will back off that, just like I showed you in that other lip, get away from it within about maybe 25 yards of that lip edge. Plenty of room for if that bird appears. I've already sit on a ridge like this right at the top because I heard a bird like way out here, and I thought he's coming right out the ridge top. Yep, he's going to come right into me. And I was like sitting up against a big tree like this, pointing the gun this way. Well, what did he do? He dropped off the ridge, went down below out of sight, come up here and come in right behind me. He walked right aside of me. He was within about 3 feet. All I saw was that big scared turkey eye when he walked by, and he pitched right off that ridge. So avoid that. I would get down here. There was a little lip down here, wait for him to crest that ridge, and he'd be in the shotgun range. That log right there, that one wasn't too far away, but a turkey can get behind that, and since it's so high, strut, and you won't even see his head. So avoid putting any obstacles between you and that bird. Using logs as cover is great. I was sitting in a little depression here. That one was only about 10 yards in front of me, and I could still see all this. What you can't tell is that's a gobbler right there, and the distance is hard to see. You see how he was in that thicket? He was about within that 40-yard range, the killing of that 10 gauge, but I could never get him to go away from them sticks. I watched him for 45 minutes right up to the noon closing hour, and I was by myself out there, and I could have waited, but soon as the noon closing hour come, I took the safety off, and I thought, I got to get out of the woods. I ain't going to just sit here watching him strut trying to call a bird. I crawled over to my decoy, which you can hardly see here. It bent over in the sun, and crawled like a deer. And he just like looked, and he wasn't even scared, and he walked off. And of course, I heard him gobbling the next day, but he didn't come in. So that was one that got away. See any barriers? Well, it's wide open here in front of you. But if you're calling a bird down over that ridge, see that thick briary stuff? He may go through there, but more often than not, they'll hang up on the other side. So don't set up a distance behind something like that. Try to get below it if you can, but without getting spotted. Decoy alley for sure. You're up on a ridgetop like that. You got a long road. You're here sitting against a tree, say like right here, and the gobbler's looking up this road from a distance. If you don't have a decoy there, you're done. He sees nothing's in that trail, and he's probably going to go down over the ridge, or he'll just quit gobbling altogether. This is a bird I happened to come upon in Tennessee. What you can't see here is the corner that's behind us. As soon as I come around this corner, I saw that gobbler with his tail fanned to me and a hen right behind him in the middle of the road. I ducked, hit the ground, had the safety off. It was only like 25, 30 yards away. The hen, sure enough, moved away from him. He was by himself. Boom, and down he went. So this was a place I wouldn't even hunt it. It was thick on both sides. But that gobbler saw that as a strutting area, and he never gobbled that morning. He was with his hen, and I took him away. Extremely open woods are really bad. This morning I heard this bird. He gobbled. He sounded multi-directional. I called him the ghost. He never did appear, but nearly every shot I would have took was way out of range, no matter where I was. And this was about where I was sitting. These open woods can be tough. It's better when it starts to green up. You have more foliage. So you want to use the topography whenever you can, whether it's a little depression or off one side of the ridge if he's over here, or if he's over here off this side of the ridge, be in less than your maximum effective range. This is a bird in an area where I hunt above the Jackson River, thick as anything. They did burns a number of years. Grouse have increased. I don't see many hunters here because it's so steep. This is the top of the saddle. I've killed so many birds along here. This bird happened to have multiple hens with him. Come off from here. You can see I have this polyvinyl tail up. I had a Jake and a hen. He come up with those hens. He was gobbling, and I was over here in the back by a tree. Soon as he saw that fan, he left his hens and went right over to beat that turkey up. And of course, that turkey was me, and boom, and he was on the ground. It's one of my favorite places in the world to hunt, and I'll probably start my season up there because I've been going there forever, and there's another spot close by. This was a bird I encountered down in here in Virginia, but as you can see, that says posted. I had no access to him. I was on game lands. He was not. And although I tried to call him over, the woods were very open and didn't get him. But that's how it is. I was not about to trespass, even though I was in an area where I didn't expect to see anybody else. But I would have known I was trespassing. So that's where we said as the other night, know where you are always. And if you have onX, even if it's another state, you'll know where the private property is. And with Avenza in North Carolina, you'll always know where the game lands is. Oh, that was a double. Ignore that. Strategies for hung up gobblers. Avoiding obstacles. I just told you about it. Make his path to you as easy as possible. Turkeys are just like humans. They take the path of least resistance. Multiple calls. We mentioned that already. You sound like more than one hen. That is one of the reasons for using that mouth diaphragm call. So practice, 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 as we showed in the video the other night. Unless you can handle 2 calls and hold the gun at once, you'll be doing pretty good. I'd like that myself. Changing calling positions, as I mentioned, if they're not comfortable in the spot you're calling and you can successfully move away and go around, making a wide berth circle, that can make a difference. Double teaming. You have a hunting partner, you make the hunter the pivot point, and whether the turkey makes a turn or not, that other hunter's in the back and can sound like a disinterested hen going away. If the turkey goes to the left, the hunter goes to the right. The helper goes to the right. If the turkey's going to right, the other hunter goes to left. For my Penn State advisor, I took him on his first turkey hunt, and we did this exactly the same thing. And I used a stream bed to hide behind. It worked out great. Beware of the silent approach, folks. More often than not, moving, calling, and moving, calling, moving, calling. I come up by a ridge and I hear woof, 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 woof. That was a bird coming in silent. And I should have sat, waited, been patient, but I want to hear a gobble. I want to strike one. And that's what I do. Be where he wants to go. Redundant. Bunch of stuff. I know we're at time, but just loading up, and yeah, I'll move quick. Take his temperature. You heard it, hot or not. If you respond, stop calling and let him find you. Redundant. So I'll probably clean this up for the successor. Assume the position and get comfortable. Get that gun up. Use objects to determine your maximum effective range. When I set up, and I've hunted long enough to know the distance, I'm like, that rock's 20, that tree's 25, that log is 40, 45, that's too far. And that's what you want to do when that bird's on its way in. If you need to move, wait till his eyes are obstructed, as you saw in our video. You cannot quick draw a gobbler. Be still, be patient, be ready. When to shoot, and if he's moving, stop him. We had somebody on a mentored hunt. There were some turkeys walking very slow aside of us. He could have at any time easily just put his bead right just in front of that turkey, but he didn't. He wanted it for immediately stop, and it didn't, and they were close. Well, if they're moving, you can stop them with just a or a hen call, whatever. But when to shoot, you take a shot when you have it. Don't shoot at a running bird. Don't shoot at a flying bird. Head goes up after the shot, shoot again. I've lost birds that way, rolled them, feathers flew. the head pop up, and I had one pitch off a ridge. I was totally disgusted. Avoid shooting multiple birds. You already saw that, 1 bird per day. Do not run to a down gobbler. It's unsafe. You can hurt yourself. Yeah, take your time. He's down. Step on his head, neck, flop. And that was before we had the video. That's why I have these. Tag your gobbler immediately and report ASAP. Savor the woodland gift, as John Henry pointed out. You were gifted. Time of year to hunt, and there's a red roof in all kind of conditions. And in fact, it was 17 degrees in that box last night. And you best when I got up, that was in the Virginia Highlands, I dressed fast. Bluebird days, 2 days straight in Tennessee rain. Time of year, early season, unpressured birds, but they may be henned up. You're getting the first whack at them, and you're typically going to encounter that. And they're hard to pull away from hens, with the exception of the subordinates and satellite. Post first, second week, and this is life according to Deet. So others may disagree, but this is 45 years of turkey hunting. Hens nesting, that's a good thing. Many hunters are done. After the first week or so, or even weekends, I don't see a lot of hunters. They give up. Maybe they got to go back to work. Gobblers may be more receptive during this time as well, because they're not likely henned up. So some of the hens are starting to nest already. Less gobblers in the woods, though. Many of those, not all, some of them were harvested earlier. Late season, you may have the woods to yourself. Starts getting buggy, snaky. Wear your snake boots, wear your bug spray and your permethrin on your clothes. The season is winding down typically, but the remaining gobblers are typically more receptive, but they also may be more spooky because of hunting pressure. Hunt when you can, folks. Bottom line. Rain, wind, and snow doesn't mean you can't go. For rain, although it may delay fly down, and I've seen that before, they'll stay on the roost longer. Seek out those woodland roads or openings, clearings, and fields. I've already been up on the woods that was pouring down rain, and I immediately went to a field where I knew where it was. 10 minutes later, I killed a gobbler. That's where they go. Wind, you already heard me say, leeward side of ridges, hollows, depressions, creek bottoms, thicket edges. They don't go anywhere else. They are home. Snow, sleet, I'll go to openings. I'll sit out a blizzard. I'll hunt a squall. If it's really like a storm, I won't hunt. I mean, it's just going to be tough. But a little bit of squall, you'd be surprised after the sun pops open, even on cloudy days sometimes, or after that snow, I'll typically hear a gobble. Not all the time, but sometimes. And again, hunt when you can. I was looking better then. I'm starting to get that aging thing going on, but choose a good, nice backdrop when you take a picture of your turkey. And this was actually on a friend's property, the only private land I've hunted in PA. I mostly kill the birds on public, but yeah, choose something nice and have it. Mostly I take pictures of birds on the ground. For me, wild turkey nuggets, I like to make the leg meat and the breast meat 2 different ways. And so it's a very simple recipe. It's actually on our website. It should be in our recipe cookbook. They're great for anybody that likes chicken nuggets. You'll throw them in the trash if you try these turkey nuggets, and the turkey nuggets are far healthier. Yeah, I'm not a big gourmet cook. I can eat very plain stuff. I'm like the dog that you throw the same bowl in front of me, he's wagging his tail. But it was called Instant Pot Wild Turkey and Dumpling. It was a National Shooting Sports Foundation recipe. And I prefer the Amish egg noodles. I had 2 pound bag of mixed veggies, and better than bouillon, I call it as the bomb. So it works real good. I will say I recently, and 2 years ago, got an Instant Pot. Those are awesome. Pressure cookers. Yes, crock pots are still great, but if you don't have much time, those pressure cookers are incredible. This is a document you're going to get. I will send this to you when I do send the follow-up survey called Troubleshooting Turkey. You can see it was in an Outdoor Life magazine. I carried these pictures forever. It was 3 or 4 pages. It had the problem, the likely diagnosis, the solution, preferred calls. I still have the original pages from the magazine. And while I was a fledgling turkey hunter, they helped out so much. You want to read more about the wild turkey? Here's an excellent book. I was always fascinated with turkey biology. And the more you know about this noblest of game birds, and I'm not trying to offend any grousers or dovers or anything like that, the better hunter you're going to be. Tons of recipes online. That's we only showed 2. I didn't have the World Wide Web now. It's one time I Googled like deer hunting recipes. There was like 4,850,000,000 or whatever. So this is a book that is still out there by the NWTF. And I was really incredibly amazed at this girl hunter, Georgia Pellegrini. She said, "Do not waste. You work too hard for this old gobbler, and he deserved that you respect every part of him." I loved hearing that from more modern hunters, whether male or female, because I've already heard at turkey hunting seminars, and of course I shut that down real quick. Somebody said one time, the turkey legs are not fit for human consumption. That is so untrue. So discarding their legs is blasphemy. Low and slow. You just saw, like John Henry showed you, turkey tacos. That meat and the broth that comes from it is like nothing you will ever buy. And I'll also, if you want, I'll send this How to Process a Wild Turkey YouTube. It was from another state. We want to do a processing video, but never have gotten to it yet. Maybe we will eventually. So I'll have to remember that and send that along with the troubleshooting. Time for Q&A. But before that, a few reminders, because a lot of people come in later. Webinar links are distributed following the registration close. So obviously that was the last webinar. You got it at 2 p.m. A lot of times the folks will reach out, where is it? Where is it? And I don't put it on the registration because people will share it. We'll go over our limit in attendees, and then we'll end up paying out of pocket. Recordings are distributed to registrants in less than or equal to 2 weeks, or it may be longer. It's done by our communications folks. I have no control over it, so you'll have to wait for it. Tonight's link is not the recording. It's only for the live event. You must register for all webinars you wish to view. If you're in the portal, you will get the recordings along with the survey and those other things I mentioned. Folks, don't cheat yourself. As pointed out by Eric last night, many people kind of get intimidated about hunting. Yes, there's a huge learning curve, but don't wait for someone to join you or take you. And as I said the other night, instructors are easy to get at our workshops, and you will meet them if you attend, but it's a lot harder to get, especially for a 1-month season, anyone willing to mentor someone. There are so much of these resources available, whether through us or online, and yeah, get out there, make your mistakes, and you're going to. That's part of the learning process. Now, not with firearms, but with the dumb things that you do, you learn from them, not by somebody taking you. And as I noted earlier, one mentor is nothing like we throw at you with all these different perspectives and people. So give it a shot. You know, we have a situation where we have like a later season December deer hunt, and people wait for it. And I say, you're cheating yourself if you don't go out in November. The November's a rut. You can't get assistance during the rut. That's when those deer are on the move, especially males and of course the females. So take advantage of early season. Don't wait. And I said we will have some mentored hunts for people that attend workshops, that have to attend workshops, not webinars, but it's a limiting factor, and yada yada. Said enough. So as I always say, and I'll pop back to this slide, or I'll keep this one on. I don't always strut right to your call, but when I do, it's 30 minutes after you're left. And I've done that many, many times. And you will get that survey. So with that, I've already got some questions. Let's fire them up. Non-resident license requirement. Eric?
So looking at your next statement there as well, Stephen, the non-resident
okay. Yeah, go
license
ahead.
requirement. In addition to non-resident hunting license, do we need the non-resident big game or privilege? So in North Carolina, as a non-resident, you are required to purchase your basic hunting license as well as your big game hunting license. I'm not 100% sure what you're looking at, where you see non-resident big game for $119 or non-resident privilege big game for $225. What I'm assuming you're looking at is North Carolina does charge non-residents differently based on the state they are from. And the reason for that, I'm just reading this straight off of our website, is the license fees for residents of Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia are based on reciprocal licensing options. So basically, the way I read that is we're charging residents of that state the same as they charge North Carolina hunters to go hunt their state. So just looking at our website here for the state basic hunting license for a non-resident. If you're from Georgia, it's $100. South Carolina, $125. Tennessee, $110. Virginia, $110. If you're not from one of those states, it's $119. And you could also purchase your 10-day license if you're only going to be here for a few days, and you can look at those prices on our website. And then the big game hunting license, again, is a little bit different depending on what state you're from, but you can buy a big game 10-day license or the season-long license. If you're from Georgia, it's $225, South Carolina, $310, Tennessee, $195, and Virginia, $85. That's for your year-long license. If you're not from one of those states, it's $119. So I feel like I just threw a lot of words at you there, but basically, short and sweet, you need your non-resident hunting license and your non-resident big game license. You need both of those two things.
And you do definitely want to, as pointed out, go to the website, because we have licensing folks that are specialists in these topics. And I especially, I always get the sportsman license, and now I have the 50+ lifetime, which I've never had. You ask them folks, they know exactly what you need, but it is in that Regs Digest. If it's confusing, call them. If you can't see it online, just email me and say, what's the call center number? But if you go on our website, it is there, and they are willing to help you under licensing. So, yeah. Thank you, Eric. I like to hunt because I like to eat. Hey, me too. Thank you for putting up the recipes, but what can we do as a community or as regulators talk more about how good it is to prepare, cook, and eat turkeys and other birds? I don't, it's well, other than providing the recipes, and other than that comes up a bit at workshops, I don't think we do any special outreach unless anybody else is aware of it. And mostly these things happen organically through other organizations. So yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one. Anybody have any comments? No? Okay. I would say just yeah, share it tongue in cheek. Share it with your family and friends. Share it on Facebook. I don't go on Facebook. I'm antisocial. But yeah, that's probably the best I can say, because other than we sharing things on programming, that's the only way it gets out. If a friend comes out of a state, what do they need to buy? Well, that kind of we've already answered that. Look online under licensing, and unless Eric has any comments, call again the customer service folks, and they'll give you what you need to know exactly. What are the different style pot call strikers for? John Henry, you want to give a shot? And Eric, I may, if you don't mind, throw you out some hunting related too to give my voice a rest. You all right with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So go ahead. We'll start out with John Henry. What are the different style pot call strikers for?
Each, there are multiple surfaces that can be used for pot calls, like glass, acrylic, slate, and then there are multiple different types of strikers that can be used in conjunction with those different surfaces. I would recommend you trying out multiple and finding out which one sounds the best, because some of them work real good on each surface and some of them don't work really well. Eric, you got anything else?
No, sir. I think that summed it up. Different strikers might sound a little different with different calls. Find one that works for you, that you like, and that you feel like you can be confident with.
You're absolutely right. And just say, as like Ray I says, one call one day may work, one call one day may not work. So the variety, yes, just like they pointed out. How soon after killing do I need to gut or dress a turkey? We'll start with you, Eric, on that one.
I would say just as quick as you get that bird tagged and registered and back to the house, I wouldn't let it hang. I wouldn't, some people like to age red meat like deer meat and things like that. I would say as quick as you get that bird tagged and get it home, go ahead and get it, however you choose to dress that bird. There's a couple of different ways. You could pluck it whole if you wanted to and gut it. You could just cut through the skin and cut off the breast meat and the legs and thighs. But however you choose to do it, I would recommend doing it just as quickly as you can. I wouldn't delay it very long.
Anything to add, John Henry?
I would just say, last season I made that comment about the photo, and I made it again tonight about letting that bird dry out. And that may be what this is in reference to, like how long would I let it hang there before you do something? Literally I toted that bird back to the truck and breasted it out and took the legs off. So it had been like 45 minutes since I killed it. And that's pretty normal. I tend to take Ziplocs with me when I turkey hunt, or at least have them in the truck. And if I'm gonna breast them out and take the legs off and not take the whole carcass home, I tend to do that right when I get back to the truck and go ahead and get that bird on ice. Because if you leave it with feathers on it, it will be forever before it cools down. They're very insulating.
Yep. So someone said I'm a Georgia resident. So yep, probably heard all that stuff. Definitely call our licensing folks. Do all game lands require you to camp in a designated camping area, or can you camp anywhere if not stated in a special regs? We know who that one's for.
So yes, you must camp in designated camping areas in state-owned game lands. If it does not say specifically in the Regs Digest where there is a designated camping area, then that means that there is no camping on that game land. On federal game land, like the National Forest, those places you can camp anywhere unless otherwise posted. So I'll give you an example. We have an area here in Caldwell County called Wilson Creek, and it's a popular spot for people to come and kayak and trout fish and things like that. And it is in the National Forest, but you cannot camp along the creek because of that creek's tendency to flash flood. So you can camp anywhere you want in Pisgah National Forest, but along the creek right there is a no camping zone. But if it's state game land, it is only in designated areas.
Yep. Depending on outside temperature, how soon do we need to field dress the turkey to lower its temperature ASAP like deer? I think we've kind of already got that, right, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, I was just going to say, for me, for example, where the place I hunt, I'll kill a bird. I do not dress it on site. I will carry it a mile and a half. I'll get back to the truck. I'll fire up my dark roast coffee in the French press. I have to do that absolutely first. I have the turkey in the shade by the truck. Right after I finish in that, then I'm cutting up. So that turkey had the guts in for about an hour, but the temperatures there were very cool. In the heat later on, I would get it real quick. So yeah, somebody that lets it in a little bit longer. And somebody said, thanks, you're very welcome. Kind of like the calls with the 3 hunting methods you talked about. Is it figure out your own style, or is it choose a style based on location, like fields or near water or mountain makes a certain style work better? No, not necessarily. I'd say it's more personal. How about you guys there? You want to stab at that quick? How about you?
I agree with you, Deed. I think it just comes down to what you enjoy the most and what you get the most out of a hunt. If you really enjoy walking and calling and seeing a lot of country and trying to strike birds, then then hunt that way. If you only have a small piece of private property and you can only hunt this one field or whatever it may be, then fine, hunt that way. But a lot of it will come down to scouting and just your personal preference. I would say the only time one is going to work better than another is consistently is when it rains, when those birds get wet. They really like to get to openings. And that's just me talking, and John Henry and Hannah and Deep may have something else to say about that. But when they get wet, then that's when I really try to focus on fields and maybe sitting on those fields for longer periods of time.
Anything to add, John Henry?
Nope, he really nailed it. I think
Okay.
it's all based on personal preference and how big
Yep.
a place you have to hunt really plays into that. You know, and just like he said, 100%. If you have fields and it's raining or has just rained, those birds are going to get out in those fields and want to dry off and be able to get away from all that dripping water where they can't hear.
Yeah. You know, just as another very brief example, a place I hunted deer in PA, and it was a private property my brother got me on. It was 200 acres. That was not enough for me to turkey hunt. I mean, if the birds were down in the fields, they were not on the mountains. Like I said earlier, talking about where I hunt. In the fall, they were up in the ridges. These birds then in the spring were down in the bottom, and 200 acres, you run out of that in no time when you're running and gunning. So depends on where you hunt. Does a wounded or near miss bird count as one of your allowed WRC birds? If you can't find a wounded bird, it counts? Eric?
No, if you wound a bird and you are unable to recover that bird and you do not know the state of that bird, dead, alive, or otherwise, you are not required to tag and register that bird. You know, that's the requirement of the law. There are people that ethically might say, you know what, I'm going to count that as one of my 2 turkeys. But that is an ethical decision, meaning that is a decision for you to make and how you feel about that. But as far as law requirements go, if you don't harvest that bird and recover that bird, then no, you don't need to tag that bird.
Yep, and friends, you will get excited. So calm yourself down, try to avoid that, because believe me, from experience, and I've probably lost 2 or 3 birds in my 45 years, they were the worst experiences of my entire life. So I think that says it. I've found large groups of turkey consistently in some locations early in the year, and then when the season comes in, they seem to have moved on or something with no fresh sign that they are still using the area. Do they tend to move to different areas when they split off for the mating season? This sounds like a biology question for me. Hannah, you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah, it is a bit of a biology question. So turkeys use different portions of the habitat during different times of the year. So a lot of times where they are in the wintering, fall and winter period is different than what they use in the springtime. So particularly the last week or so of February, but particularly in March, is really where you want to really do a lot of your scouting, because they've moved into their spots. They've taken out where they want to strut and call their ladies in. So this would be a good time to be out in the field. And also to play into that rain. Remember, turkeys are extremely paranoid birds, so they rely on their vision and their hearing. So when it's raining, so they go out into the field so they can see those long distances to help see those predators.
Yeah. Thank you. What is your advice about snakes or snake protection with the weather warming up and all the walking? John Henry, I think it's your turn.
I think it's up to the individual person about what they want to wear. I've been hunting for 20 years, and as long as you pay attention, you shouldn't have very many interactions with snakes. If you want to wear something, snake boots are always a good option, or even the chaps, you know, like the leg gaiters are option for you. But I typically don't wear anything for snake protection, but I like snakes. I have buddies who absolutely hate snakes, and they wear snake boots this time during turkey season.
You have anything to add, Eric, or in your experience, do you wear snake boots a lot?
No, sir. I completely agree with John Henry. I do not wear snake boots. I really rarely see snakes when I'm turkey hunting. I see a couple black snakes a year. I feel like honestly, I'm much more concerned with ticks than I am snakes. I think you're much more likely to have issues with ticks and tick-borne illnesses than you are snakes. But if it makes you feel more comfortable, makes you feel better, you know, absolutely. There's nothing in the world wrong with wearing snake chaps. So whatever you're comfortable with.
Yep, some great points. Someone said, thank you, much appreciated. So I see we're not seeing any questions. So with this, I'm going to kind of just give the scenario of the wrap up. If one pops up, keep an eye on it. Thank you, folks, so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Again, you will get the recordings when I receive them. I do hope to see you at workshops. So I hope you sign up, especially with it being the last year. It'll be nice to have you folks. And again, I am always very thankful and humbled for the assistance I get, obviously from the volunteers. I see a lot of volunteers, but also from our staff that have their own responsibilities and own duties, but they still been assisting with the programming. So very, very, very thankful. We got one coming up, but I'll just kind of end with the final sentence here. Do be safe, do be ethical, and really enjoy spring. Get out there, make your mistakes, and enjoy all that is the gobble of the wild turkey. So somebody said, can I hunt turkey on Sundays? Probably in the regs, but I'm asking anyway. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, you can hunt on Sundays. The only exception to that is hunting does close between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. So on Sundays, you would need to quit at 9:30, and then you can start back up again at 12:30.
And folks, believe me, all that is in there. Let your fingers do the walking first. And from all the videos talking about using Google Maps and the Avenza and our interactive map, take advantage of that stuff. There's more than there ever was. And I'll finally say with while saying goodnight is, if you attend the webinar, if you attend the workshops, and some of you maybe missed the mini turkey ones in Ellerbe, and you at the very end say, you know what, I can't get this thing. I just can't understand how you can do it. Well, there's ping pong, there's golf, there's spectator sports, and all those other things that people do, because we're throwing at you more than anyone has ever seen. Archery is okay for all hours on Sunday, correct?
Yes, that is correct. If you go to your regs book and you look at page 54, there's a handful of restrictions when it comes to hunting on Sundays. I won't take the time to read each and every one of those, but typically, most people are hunting with a shotgun, and those hours do close 9:30 to 12:30. If you choose to hunt with archery equipment, including a crossbow, then that time does not apply to you.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, sometimes I throw this out. Any closing remarks for my panelists? Any closing comments at all? And Eric, we can start. Well, we'll start with Hannah. Any final note, Hannah?
No, other than I hope everyone gets an awesome chance to go out, have an opportunity to have successes and failures. And if you do harvest the turkey, please report it.
Okay, John Henry?
Just enjoy the woods and enjoy the opportunity. You're going to learn from it, and embrace it. Embrace the suck, because it's going to be great, and it's going to be amazing, and then it's going to be so humbling all at the same time.
Okay, and Eric, for what is finally my last turkey hunting webinar, and with fond, humbled memories, closing for you, my friend.
Just be persistent and have fun. And Deep, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this with you the last several years. I've really enjoyed it, and congratulations on your retirement. I know it's a hard worked career, and it's well deserved, and I hope you get to do everything that you want to do in retirement.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a great night. Be safe out there. And I do hope to see you in March. Every weekend in March, there's a workshop. Have a great night, and thank you all.